Hello, hello, everyone. We are back with Open Dialogue, my monthly live Q&A. Per usual, I will give it a couple beats for everyone to sign in. We are going to be speaking to a very special guest. She just texted me to let me know she is on her way. Caitlin V. I'll let her introduce herself a bit more as well. In 3 minutes, she will be logging in exactly 3 minutes. But it's going to be a good, sweet 3 minutes because we're going to get ready for her. Just going to, like I said, give it a few beats, let everyone sign in who wants to join us tonight. We're doing something a little different. We're actually going to do a giveaway to 2 lucky watchers who chime in with us now and stay with us through the end. We're going to do a special giveaway with a couple of Caitlin's intimacy card decks. They're called a Spark deck, and she is going to personally send 2 lucky watchers who stay with us all the way through, all the way to the end. You're going to have a chance to win one of 2 Spark decks from Caitlin V, our special guest today on Open Dialogue. So she's going to be joining us here in about a couple minutes. She's getting a few things in order, but this week we have a very, very special guest. I'll do a quick little brief bio, and you'll see me kind of referencing some notes, some little questions off screen, because I want to make sure we get in all the good, juicy details from our special guest, Caitlin V. And remember, this is for you guys. You should chime in too if you have any questions. Caitlin V is a renowned sex and relationship coach. You may have seen her on Good Sex, was her TV show that was on Discovery Plus and Max. She works with couples to improve their intimacy and connection, both inside and outside of the bedroom. So we're going to talk about all of her specialties, the overlap with my specialty, non-monogamy and open relating. So she'll be joining us here in just a couple moments. Caitlin V is our special guest today, and we're going to do something super exciting, totally new. We're going to do a giveaway, because who doesn't like free shit? I love free shit. And the free shit that today we're talking about is we're going to give a couple of you guys who are tuning in. Caitlin just joined us, so we're going to do a special giveaway for 2 folks that are joining us today and watch all the way through, engaging, sharing questions, all that good stuff. We're going to give away 2 Spark decks from Caitlin. Here we go. She's got to go to space and then come back and link up on camera here. And then I will give us a moment to do some proper introductions while that is happening. And remember, this is a live Q&A. This is for you guys too. So please come with your questions. Nothing's a bad question. We're here to offer you the information that you need. We're here to answer your questions. We're here to have an open dialogue about relationships, about sex, about intimacy, connection, everything in between. Speaking of connection, seems like as much as we tested our tech and we're prepared, she is not. It says requested, so I guess all the little bits of fairy dust that have to shoot up into the ether and come back to connect our phones are taking their time. It's the marine layer. We're having weird weather here in LA, and I'm going to blame it on that because it's unable to join. All right, she's going to restart, hop back on here. But in the meantime, all of you who are with us right now, again, we are doing our monthly live Q&A called Open Dialogue. I'm here to answer all of your questions about open relating, non-monogamy, diverse relationship dynamics, anything that's on your mind, anything that's on your heart. And then my special guest this month is Caitlin V, who will be joining us in just a moment. She's a renowned sex and relationships coach. You may have seen her on her show, Good Sex, on Discovery Plus and Max as well. She's going to be here to answer your questions. And we're also doing something super special this month. We are going to do a giveaway because I love free stuff. Who doesn't love free stuff? So if you love free stuff, drop a little thumbs up in the comments there. I want to know that you're excited. We got free stuff for you. And all you have to do is engage and join us and ask your questions and watch from the beginning to the end and have a lovely time. And then you get rewarded on top of it. And now it won't send the request. Let's see what happens. I wonder if Instagram updated yet again. Oh, we got a thumbs up. All right, let's see. It's happening.
There we go.
Hurrah!
Tech.
Technology gods
Tech.
arrived. Tech. No matter how much we think we know, and every time we think we've got it dialed in, it just isn't. Well, hi, Caitlin. Good to see you.
Hi,
Thanks for
good
joining
to
us.
see you. Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
So delighted. So I gave a brief
Hi.
introduction to folks. We got some folks chiming in right now. For everyone who's just joining us, this is Open Dialogue, my monthly live Q&A. I'm Iseman. I am an open relationships coach. I help couples interested in exploring non-monogamy open up without blowing up. And I'm joined by my dear friend, Caitlin B today, who is a renowned sex and relationships coach. You may have seen her from her show, Good Sex on Discovery Plus and Max, or, just doing all kinds of awesome stuff on YouTube. She's quite busy. But Caitlin, do you want to just chime in and do a bit more of an in-depth intro if you'd like, if
Yeah,
I left out any highlights?
totally. So I actually come from the world of research. I was a professor.
Oh, I don't know if I froze or Caitlin froze. Can you guys see us and can you hear both of us? If you can hear me, Allie, please give a thumbs up. It just booted Caitlin for no reason. I just can't with Let's try this one more time. Caitlin is the bomb. I agree. You can't argue with science. I'm a hard agree on that. All right, we sent another invite and
Okay,
we're
I'm here.
back.
We're
And
back.
we're back.
Hi, everyone. I'm here. What I was saying is that I came from the world of research. I decided to leave that because I got so much more joy out of helping people to live their best sex lives in a one-on-one capacity. For the last 9 years, I've been coaching. My specialty has really been on men in particular who are dealing with performance anxiety, premature ejaculation, sexless marriages. And I have really expanded in my ability to work with not just women, not just couples, but like really cisgender and heterosexual men who are an underserved population in terms of the conversations that we often have about sex and sexuality. And then, of course, you see me working with couples on my show, Good Sex, and I still give advice and give coaching to women, but I bring in a perspective that is kind of unique. There's not too many of us that are like really focused on supporting men. So if you're someone here that follows me or found me from YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in and
Awesome.
happy to be here.
Well, I am excited to have this conversation. You like me, you're a nerd. I'm the non-monogamy nerd. So I love
Totally.
me some research and stats. And to your point about, cisgendered heterosexual men being underserved in specifically the sex and relationship conversation, I couldn't agree more. I primarily as well, I work with couples generally. And it's actually when it's a heteronormative couple, it's usually the woman who is broaching the topic of, hey, let's
Totally.
open our relationship up, let's explore some other dynamics. And what I see so often is a lot of men think that's what they want initially. And then when it's actually brought to them, all the fear, the insecurity, whatever else is coming
Yeah.
up, just rears its ugly head and there's a retraction. So I'm really excited today to dive in with you and just talk about the role that shame plays both in our physical and our emotional components of our relationships. Because that's also something I do with my couples is really helping them understand that their sexual needs and their romantic needs are not necessarily the same thing, and their level of need for exclusivity around that as well.
Literally just hung up with one of my clients talking about this.
Yeah.
That there's so many different layers and nuances and textures when it comes to like our sexual needs. And there are
Mm-hmm.
fantasies that we have that we
Mm-hmm.
really want to make happen. There are fantasies that we really don't want to make happen. There are things that we're afraid to bring up with our spouse or our partner that they might be totally down with. There are things that we feel a lot of like shame or insecurity around that we're not even sure that we could like voice out loud because they're so scary. There are and then the other piece of this is that because there's so little great education on non-monogamy, on opening up, on swinging, on dungeons, on bondage, like you name it, we tend to think that in my experience, my clients often tend to think that it's all or nothing. And me too,
Yeah.
right? That like
Mm-hmm.
if I take a single step into the world, this means that now we're swingers. It's
Yeah.
like that's right.
It's all in. Yeah. Everything's
We're
open.
all in.
Free for
Now
all.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have a girlfriend and a boy, and we're all gonna live together in some like commune. And it's like, whoa, like pump the
Yeah.
brakes. We actually can have a pretty awesome conversation, whether or not it ends in anyone changing their like relationship style. Um, Actually, I think that one of the coolest things about having the conversation around like, opening up a relationship are that it often strengthens a relationship just to talk about it by forcing us to get clear on things that we may not have otherwise been clear on or otherwise communicated on.
Exactly. And that's why I like to say, like, yes, my specialty is non-monogamy. My specialty is diverse relationship dynamics, but diversity means all. So whether you choose to open up your relationship to other people or you choose to open up more to each other. It's about
Mm.
creating that container as a radically honest and authentic space. Because that's something I've seen too with less often, but a few clients. They think they want to open up, but they actually just want to be able to share that with their partner and get curious about it and have that conversation to know that, oh yeah, we can talk about literally anything. We
Yeah,
have a
right.
bulletproof relationship.
And I love that because if you can talk about, hey, like finding other human beings attractive without
Mm-hmm.
it having to mean that we're gonna like go dive deep into their body or whatever, into other relationships, like then you can really talk about anything, because I talk about sex for a living. I have often joked that like if we can talk about sex, we can talk about anything. But like the truth is if we can talk about poop, we can talk about anything. Because like if you can have a nuanced conversation on like your bowel movements with someone that you
Yeah.
love, like
That's
everything is
intimacy.
on the table.
That's
That's real intimacy. I know I tell
yeah.
my friends to have the weird, you should go,
Already
anyone on
losing
here like,
friends if you can't talk about it. That's not what we're necessarily going to talk about today, but just as a reference
yeah,
point.
just I'm really fun at dinner parties. So yeah, I think to your point, like we want to know that our partner loves and accepts us unconditionally to the degree that we can acknowledge the thoughts, desires, feelings that we have that we wouldn't necessarily share with anybody else.
Yeah. And to your point on that all or nothing too, a huge misconception I run into, and I'm sure there's a version of this with you, is just the assumptions that come with various labels or various ideas of things. Like you said, like, oh, if we're doing this, then tomorrow that means we're doing all of it. Well, like, hey, let's actually understand what all of this is first. Let's get curious. Let's define these things. Let's create a shared language. Let's discover what your boundaries are. What term do you feel like there are sort of misunderstood terms or labels or things that you've seen really have a damaging impact in the work that you do as well?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really great question. When I think about the term here, I always think about Facebook. Do you remember the early days of Facebook when you could put a relationship status?
Oh,
You had
oh,
like your partner,
yeah.
and then
Wait,
the
does that not
relationship
exist
status,
anymore? I didn't
I
know.
don't even
It's
know. I think that
complicated
maybe
or
it
no?
does. Yeah,
No, yeah.
where we got the term, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And we got the term like open relationship. And what's so funny about that is that like none of them really meant anything in terms of like there's no definitive answer for any of those things, right? And I think that, even you and I were just talking about this, like even using the term boyfriend and girlfriend, what does that mean? We're dating, we're in a relationship. What does it
Yeah.
mean to each of the individual people inside of it? I have met couples that were open that like never did anything physical with any other people. I've met couples that were open who attended play parties and orgies separately, right? Like I've met couples that were open that had romantic partnerships with other people, who had
Exactly.
physical relationships with other people. Like the terminology does so little
Yeah.
to actually describe, but we all have a story about what it means. Like when I use that language to someone without being specific with them, or when a client of mine says, like, I want to have an open relationship or explore that, I need to really be precise and ask them, like, what does that mean to you? Because, when I say car, you might imagine like a red Corvette, and I'm imagining like
Oh,
a
it's a
Tesla.
Porsche.
Like, they're both a
It's a Porsche.
car. A Porsche.
Porsche, but yeah.
A Porsche.
Oh.
Obviously, it's a Porsche.
Yeah.
But they're both cars, is my point,
Yeah.
So we have to be really particular to say, like, what is it that you're describing in your with
Exactly.
your mind and your words when you say that?
Well, and I love that because I always say we treat labels like the destination, like the end of the sentence. It's the beginning of the conversation. Cool, you guys are open. What does that mean? You're heteroflexible. What does that mean to you? Like really letting that be the door that opens and leading with curiosity to investigate more. And that's like honestly half the work I do is definitions with my clients of
Right.
what is sex, what is cheating, what are your boundaries in these different
Oh,
areas,
and we
how often are you going to
should
review them?
acknowledge how difficult it is when we just use that term like open relationship or sex. Even we're kind of letting ourselves and the other person off the hook for doing the deeper work of coming
Mm-hmm.
fully prepared to say what that means to us,
Mm-hmm.
because we, I think for the most part, uh we get by on, and we feel safe in the ambiguity, because then I don't have to define it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily have to say it out loud. I can just be ambiguous about it.
Yeah, we want that shortcut, and it cracks me up. Like we don't want to work for this relationship. So why do we think this relationship's going to work for us?
Mm.
Like there's some effort that's required, right? I love a little
Yeah.
wordplay. We need to get specific. It doesn't have to be like struggle and this, once you release like the shame and all these other preconceived notions and everything, and just get to the core of what it is you're wanting to create, that can really cut through a lot of the BS.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
It's work.
hedging
That's where the work
definitions.
really comes in.
I love it. Intimacy art. Hedging definitions are a form of shame sometimes. I think that's a really interesting thing.
True that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Um, Wonderful. Well, are you open to sharing at all about your own journey when it comes to kind of figuring out your relationship orientation,
Yeah.
where you fall on that spectrum
Happily.
and where you're at?
So I had my first boyfriend ever. His name is Sam. Uh, we there's a moment where I was really into him and still dating him, and this is like very innocent. Like we kissed. That was the extent of our whole relationship physically.
But like, what
But I sort of
kind of kiss and where?
oh
Because
my God.
again, we got to get
Do you want to
specific.
know?
No.
Do you want to know this? Do you want to know the story of my first
I
kiss? It's
mean,
funny.
I'll you share yours. I'll share
So
mine.
my first kiss took place at the homecoming dance in the middle of the dance floor in I'm gonna say sophomore year of high school,
Was your
maybe
life a
freshman.
90s rom-com? Like I
It is 100%. But get this,
Oh my God.
that's where I had my first makeout, tongue, everything.
Oh
I
my
was
God.
so into it. I was like, this is amazing. And then later when the yearbook came out at the end of the year, there is 100% a picture, the only picture from our homecoming dance. We are in the background. You can see us just macking. Yeah, there were obviously not that many chaperones at this dance because that was my first
And
kiss.
thank
But
God for that, because who
yeah, do
knows
you
what
want to
would have
tell us about
happened.
yours?
Oh man, yours is so much classier, and you have photo evidence, which is really nice. That's
Hi,
like
fun,
a
yeah.
solid memory keepsake. No, I was quite young and sprightly. I never really went through the cooties phase, so I think we were in first or second grade. We went right into French or whatever what we thought French was. It was very wet. Whatever it was very, very moist. It was in his backyard with his little sister watching from the swing set. So from an early age into voyeurism
Oh
exhibitionism.
my
So
God,
clearly
I
on
love
brand.
it. Right? We're so on brand for us. A dance
It
floor.
all makes sense.
So, anyways, I had this boyfriend, and I developed feelings for another guy that went to our school. He was an exchange student. I had such a crush on him. And I remember thinking, like, I still like my original boyfriend, and I also like this other guy. And I remember walking down the street and sort of imagining that I had, like, I think maybe even I wrote their names on pieces of paper at this point. And I had one in each hand. And I was like, this feels so weird that I should have to choose between them.
Mm, mm.
And these were the first, like, real, oh, yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, this is like my very first romantic relationship. And then my second one, because I did break up with the first one to start dating the second one, like serial and monogamous often do
Because that's what you do. That's what you're
because that's what you're
supposed to
supposed
do,
to
right?
do.
Yeah.
And then and then I continued to be monogamous for many years into college, but even then I was sort of like it feels a little weird to me to like not acknowledge that I've got more potential for intrigue and connection with other folks than just what's in front of me with my partner. And I've always been like a super loyal person. I'm sickeningly loyal, so I always um, I didn't like cheat or go behind anybody's back. Like I was always stuck to it. And then I finally reached a breaking point when I was in grad school where I was with a partner and we decided we were going to open up our relationship. And it went so
Mm.
poorly. Um, the only rule that I had made was like, please don't sleep with any of your friends or classmates. And if you do, tell me. And what did the next time I went to visit him, he was hanging out with one of his classmates, and I was like, y'all just had sex. Like, I can feel it. I can, like, you
It's
just
in
had
the
sex.
air.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the air. And he spent the whole weekend denying it. And I was like, I knew I was being gaslit. I was like, I'm going crazy. Like, like, why are you lying to me? Like, trust me, guys, you don't, in my experience, like, spidey senses, we will figure out your shit. Like, women tend to be, in my experience, not to paint with too broad of a brush, but they tend to be better liars and they tend to be really good at sussing out lying. And this was the case that he finally admitted, like, yeah, I did. I'm sorry, I lied to you. And that was my entree into open
Mm.
relationships.
Mm.
Meanwhile, I had had the chance to hook up with someone who I had a massive crush on, but we had decided to open our relationship like on Memorial Day. And this is like the Sunday before Memorial Day. So even though it was less than 24 hours away, I was like, no, 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 letter of the law. I'm not going to sleep with this guy because I promised I'd wait till Memorial Day. Meanwhile, he was down
Uh,
in, another
yeah.
city breaking our only rule. All of which is to say that I knew from an early age that I was interested in some alternative form of relationship. Like we were saying earlier, I've always been a sex nerd. So there's always been a part of me that's like, I want to try different things with different people. And one person isn't always going to be able to or interested in doing all of that with me. Or in that case, we didn't even live in the same city. So I wanted to sample the other flavors. And then when I finally got to a another relationship, the healthier relationship, like at the time, I told him, look, from the beginning, like I'm not going to be totally monogamous. Still want to have sex with other people. I want to have a healthy, emotional, deeply connected, safe partnership with you. But and he also was not necessary. He also was like he was a serial monogamous, but also he was a serial cheater. And so
Mm.
that really appealed to him too, because he was like, you know what, I'd rather do this with full
Yeah.
consent and transparency and support than feel like I was doing it behind your back. And even then, all the scars from that, having my trust violated the first time that I tried to
Mhm.
open up a relationship, all of the um, pain that went into the mistakes that we made, which, we didn't know that there were, I could have known. We knew that there were good books like The Ethical Slut, but
Mhm.
there weren't people like Instagram wasn't even
Yeah,
a thing on the
there
level that
was.
it is, but there were people out there like you who were willing to be in the room in the midst of it and helping people sort it out. And we definitely didn't take advantage of the other resources that were available at that time. We just kind of like made it up as we went. And like we also, there was a lot of pain that got involved in that too that I don't think it was necessary.
Yeah, so much of it unfortunately is, and I love that you were able to key in so early to that understanding that love, attraction, all of it isn't like a zero sum game. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm taking 5 love points away from this partner to give to that partner. It's an expansive experience. The
Mm-hmm.
only the only limited thing is time. So there is a reality in that, but
Oh,
that can be managed. And yeah, I mean, to your point, I do what I do because there wasn't a me when I started either, and it was messy and painful, and a lot of it was unnecessary. If I knew then what I know now, of course, the more specific you can be with those boundaries. Again, the misconception that it's just this free for all, right? When you open up, okay,
yeah.
anything goes within the boundaries that you create, and the boundaries are the edges of your comfort zone, so they are meant to be pushed and and moved over time potentially as you grow.
And
You want
as
to
you
do
feel safe.
that. Well, I was going to say, and the distinction is uncomfortable is okay, unsafe, not. So the
Yeah.
idea is you're creating your relationship structure with your relationship agreement as a safe container in which to be slightly uncomfortable on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Totally. I love
Yeah,
that. And that's where growth really takes place anyways, right?
yeah,
That's where the good stuff is.
exactly.
It's like right at the edge of our comfort zone. We spend
Right there.
so much of our time and energy trying to avoid even getting close to the edge of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we don't have the life that we desire or the relationship that we desire. And it's like, we've been playing it so super safe. How is anything ever going to change?
Well, say, and it's safe and it's same. If you're going to do the same things over and over and you think that you're going to get a different result, you might want to look up the definition of insanity. You got to shift it up. But that's why it's so important to have the right support for the right concerns, whether it's specific, physical performance issues that you deal with your clients or relationship dynamic changes with someone like me. The work that, at least for me, why I specialize in couples is I act basically like an avatar for their relationship. So I coach from the framework of if you're in a couple, you're already in a threesome. There's you, there's your partner, and then there's a relationship. Because what I heard in a lot of the language that you just shared about your early experiences was still very you versus me, us versus them, two of you. And
Yep.
that can be very polarizing and get you really out of not get you in a very helpful headspace of like, how are we creating this for both of our growth? What are we contributing to the relationship so that it's a container for us to fuck up, because you will, mistakes are possible. But again, that fear and a lot of shame, I believe, is what has people lie, cheat, kind of do it on the try to get away with something in the way, because they're afraid, they don't know what's going to happen if they mess up, or if they, and that's why you literally even
So,
include that in your relationship agreement of, hey, when we fuck up, because we will, this is the parameter that we have in place
Yeah.
for how we're going to deal with that. Instead
Yeah.
of like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be perfect. You're not. But you
Right.
create those edges.
Go into it with the expectation that you're each going to make mistakes, and then you have a way gentler foundation from which to move.
100%. 100%. Oh, thank you. I'd love to know too. I mean, we're kind of in that conversation already, but are there any other ingredients, I would call them, that you have found that are the most important in a relationship for your clients to overcome that level of shame that they're dealing with, and to, I would assume ultimately connecting more authentically with their partner is a huge part of changing what they're coming to you about. Does that make
What
sense?
the question is, how
Like
do they get over their shame?
like are there any other relationship ingredients, like, radical honesty, having parameters for when mistakes happen, like are there ingredients that you find are recurring in clients that you work with that really help them get over the hurdles that they're dealing with?
You know, the we deal with different hurdles, right? Because a lot of my clients are dealing with the hurdle of like premature ejaculation
Mm-hmm.
or erectile dysfunction or a sexless marriage. And certainly shame plays a role in all of those, but I think sometimes just having, a degree of compassion, forgiveness, and seeing ourselves as a person, we see everybody else as a person except for us. Everybody else is allowed to make mistakes
Yeah.
or be imperfect or learn things or whatever, except for me. I have to figure it all out. I gotta do it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the key ingredients to it all is just being willing to accept ourselves exactly as we are. And that's way trickier than it sounds. And one of the ways that we do that is by having compassion for us. And the same, most people can be really compassionate to their friends or their dog or whatever. But when it
Yeah.
comes to having self-compassion is when they really struggle.
Yeah. Well, and something it sounds like it's a recurring theme too, the idea of a sexless marriage, which is actually statistically very common. I think
Mhm.
the average I read recently is the average married couple has sex twice a year, I think was the last stat I saw. And again, that's an average, so not like the lowest. And that is something I actually do run into with clients as well, is what I'll call a mismatched libido.
Mhm.
And that kind of shame that you're talking with too, of like, oh gosh, it's on me. And like, yes, maybe there's some work that can, if it's a, performance issue, there are things that can be tried in a safe container. But if it is also just a literal mismatch in libido, there is nothing inherently wrong with
Yeah.
that. It's the necessary to separate again love, sex, commitment, or loyalty. Something that I run into a lot is like compound meanings, I call them with clients, is the assumption that those three words mean the same thing: love,
Mhm.
sex, commitment. Understanding that they don't, and that it's okay, and that you can fully love and be completely and utterly committed to your partner and desire them and other people, and that it's not all on them if they want to have sex less than you do. That's okay.
Yeah,
They don't need to feel beset upon or like they owe anybody anything. But
totally.
getting to that point requires a whole reframing, and it's a whole process.
Yeah, we almost have to redefine like what a relationship is based off of what
Mm-hmm.
our culture has told us a relationship is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like a relationship is supposed to meet all of your needs, your romantic, your companionate, your sexual needs, but that is so much to place on another person.
So,
And like
so, so.
if that other person's like, I actually only want to have sex 2 times a year, our anniversary and my birthday, or your birthday probably.
Yeah.
Um, and like that's really honestly the truth for them. Amazing. They shouldn't necessarily be monopolizing the other person's sex life then.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously
Exactly.
we have two people that disagree on frequency or type of sex or whatever way of doing sex. And we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. I think a lot of people get
100%.
divorced or break up because their sex life isn't working the way they wanted it to. And they might be breaking up an otherwise happy home in which there were alternative options.
Yeah. 100%. And again, it's that conflation of meaning, right? Of, well, if you don't, if that doesn't work for you, then you love me less. And
Yeah,
that's just, those are two different,
right,
completely different
right.
conversations.
We make things mean
Yeah.
is different than what they actually do mean. And this is where, again, it comes back to asking really good questions and being curious.
Well, and the labels too, right? It goes right back to the beginning of the conversation, is culturally we're taught to seek the label. You're my boyfriend, you're my wife,
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And that's where we get our relationship security. And that is not a secure thing to get. Like the
Right.
relationship security comes from the relationship experiences, not the label. You can call anyone anything, but especially if you don't even really know what that means and you guys both have two completely different definitions, it's meaningless. It's a conversation starter. What is the recurring relationship experience that is building that safety and security over time? Okay, well, we're kind of getting into this next question too. Do you find that clients who do have a high sex drive or a high need for sexual novelty also crave the safety and security of a long-term relationship? So they crave
Hmm.
that high level of novelty, or they have a high drive, and they also want something long-term committed and secure. And do they feel that that is an opposition?
Yeah, I think that most of them do. In terms of the clients who I've worked with, I think that both of those sort of exist in all humans, and it's just a degree on where you are in that spectrum. Or in each of those spectrums, I should say, because one of those spectrums is like, yes, loyalty, long-term relationship safety versus like not. And the other one is yes, sex, novelty, curiosity, new experiences. And the other side of that one is not,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
It's
like
like
we
two
have two
different.
scales here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, exactly. We've got two axes.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
some people like myself, like I personally identify as having a high at both.
Mm-hmm.
I really desire
Me too.
stable partnership and I
Yeah.
really desire new sexual
Yeah.
activity and and
Likewise.
and variety. Um and obviously for people who are really high in one and low in the other, I think they may find it that they don't necessarily have to give the same time and attention to these conversations because those two things, even though they don't exist in opposition in reality, they can feel like they exist in opposition. Like, how can you have a long-term, successful, stable, monogamous relationship and still have novel sexual stuff happen outside of it? Like, you can,
with a
but
with a clear
it
and
requires more.
concise relationship agreement.
Right.
Yes.
But it requires more effort than if you maybe just rank
Well,
highly on one.
exactly. And I think it's like I like to say cheating is for lazy people. It's like, yeah, sure, you could do that. Most people don't want to hurt the people that they care about. So that takes effort because we're not given basic relationship skills growing up. It's sort of this assumption of like, well, you probably had parents,
Yeah.
so you probably got some, relationship skills there. So here's the one relationship that should work for you. And if it doesn't, it's their
If you're
fault.
meant to be, you'll just figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My favorite thing with that is like the whole destiny and all that business. The Disney movies, the fairy tales, all end at the beginning of the relationship. The
Mm.
happily ever after is like, all right, roll your sleeves up, let's go. Like, how does Ariel do her taxes with Prince Eric? That's what I want to know. Like what happens when they have a mismatched libido? What if like Belle's all about it and Beast is like, just not feeling it? That's where the work comes in. That's where the uncomfortable conversations
Totally.
happen. Do you find that do you find yourself encouraging clients to really open up more authentic communication and like emotional capacity for emotional discomfort? And do you find that that's impactful for the physical symptoms that they're experiencing?
Oh, yeah. Our capacity for emotional discomfort is probably directly correlated with our quality of life,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, because change is the only constant.
Yep.
And when we respond to any anything that provokes emotional discomfort, but for the most part of this conversation, it's like a conversation around change, making changes, or doing things that we've never done before, doing
Mm-hmm.
things that we think are going to have us feel really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Our willingness to be uncomfortable is usually the greatest predictor of us having exactly what it is that we want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you were saying earlier, there's a difference between like discomfort and harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I found that just on the other edge of what makes me uncomfortable is my greatest growth opportunity.
Oh yeah. 100%. I think that the most important skill set I've ever developed and am continuing and will continue to develop for the rest of my life is my capacity to hold discomfort. For exactly that reason. Like the things I've been able to do because I'm willing to get weird and feel awkward about it and be
Yeah.
uncomfortable, has led to just so much joy and benefit. And like some stuff that I was like, oh wow, I do not need to do that again. And now I
Yeah.
know.
Right.
And that's
And
okay.
like understanding that we will survive it because sometimes our
Yeah.
little, lizard brain goes, this is going to kill me, Having my partner go to a sex club with me or without me, or go on a date with somebody else, or even have them talk to me about their attraction for somebody else, I feel like I'm going to die. And the truth is that no one ever has died from having a difficult conversation, or from, acknowledging that they want to have a less conventional relationship, whether that's with sex or romance.
Well, and that's the beauty of enacting all kinds of boundaries in your agreement is like, if there's going to be discomfort, coming because your partner has a date and you don't, and maybe it's the first date or whatever it is. And how are you taking care of yourself in that moment? And what are the parameters you've set up to reconnect afterwards?
Right.
If you need some co-regulation, that's okay. You also need self-regulation, but really understanding what's in place for that. So it's not this like big gaping unknown black hole that could just, be the death of you. Oh wait, no, we have little bumpers. It's like bowling.
Totally.
Little bumper lane.
Yeah, and you're allowed to ask for what it is that you need, and understand that, like, for in my situation, I've had partners where I had a need and they were like, "That's too much." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, then it's really difficult for me to feel safe and let go of that need. I don't think I'm going to need that need forever, but I have a need for right now, which is that, like, maybe you call me or come home or whatever, at a like a pre-specified time, things that I didn't think were that outrageous, but my partner wasn't willing to give to me, and therefore a lot of our exploration felt unsafe because we were starting with unmet needs that were like being voiced and denied. It's like really difficult for me to like get really into a space of feeling super happy for him when I was dealing with like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
that
feel
language, just the hard no, it's not very collaborative.
right.
Even if it's like, you know what, I don't know that I can do that. What about, or could we explore, or yes and, or no and,
Right.
some sort of collaboration effort rather than just a hard wall. Because then, of course, yeah, that doesn't feel safe. Because relationship, again, that's the third party in your dynamic, and you have to co-create that together, or it does die.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, and like to the point of like change, like it's always going to be changing. It's up to you how involved you want to be in those changes and how much of the author do you want to be in the story around those changes.
Totally.
But it will change whether no
It's
matter
going to
what.
change. It's going to change.
100%.
Changing bodies,
Yeah.
changing interests. If it hasn't changed in a while, you can almost guarantee that like we're not working at the edge of our comfort zone, and we're instead dealing with the negative consequences of trying to keep things the same when they naturally would change.
Yeah. And that you can create room for that. When you have a flexible and inclusive relationship, you're reviewing your relationship agreement on a regular basis. And you're going, oh,
Yeah.
you know what? I actually don't need that boundary anymore. Or, hey,
Totally.
let's look at this. We have another,
Yep.
and you can shift and grow with it. So again, it's not this whole, rug out from under you every time. It's
Totally.
like, oh, that didn't actually work the way we thought it would. Let's reassess.
100%.
Whether that's monthly, quarterly, whatever, having that regularity, I think helps a lot of that security and that safety really.
Yeah. Again, it's not just a one and done, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing is like if you're building a life with somebody, like that is a process. You don't, the house gets built, but you have to take care of it. You have to put work into it. Wonderful. Let's see. Oh yeah. And then just on the success measures, physical and emotional, do you find your clients measuring their progress with you really just in a physical assessment way, or are there emotional components that also are really integral to the work?
A lot of the work that I do gets a physical result pretty quickly,
Mhm.
and then we get to build on that.
Nice.
Because once they see that our coaching has made an impact on, say, I really became famous for premature ejaculation, so I'll just speak to that. I deal with a lot more, but people know me for that one. Within like 2 to 4 sessions, I would typically have a client seeing a big difference in how long they were able to last in bed. And once they trust that our results are working, that like they're getting results, the coaching is working, that it's safe to trust me, right? Because again, like this is really vulnerable stuff, and they are entering into like a coaching relationship with me, in which I need to establish myself as trustworthy.
Mhm.
And sometimes I promise stuff that sounds too good to be true, and it's just because I've been doing this for like 9 years. Like I know what I know what I got, and I know what I can promise. And I do have some clients where it takes a little longer, but what always happens, like 100% of the time, is that once they get some of those results, they are curious about what else is possible. And they want to know in terms of like emotional, mental, like relational success, what else is going to be possible for them. And then
That's
they
exciting.
measure their success in like, oh my God, I communicated. I learned how to communicate with my wife about stuff that was really difficult and I did it. And now I feel really free. Or I learned how to set boundaries and now I have a different relationship with my boss at work. Like I didn't expect that, or a different relationship with my mom. Like, it's so cool to see how again, it doesn't matter if it's open relationships or it's sex or it's talking to your friends about your deepest held shame or whatever, or poop. Like living at the edge of our comfort zone in any one of these areas is bound to cause change and transformation in some other ones too. And then by the end of like the 12 or 15 or whatever sessions that we do together, they're looking at me, or like 30 in the case of some clients, they look at me and they're like, my life is completely different. And I thought all I was going to do is, last longer in bed. And I'm like, yeah, of course, because sex touches on everything. And the work that we do um, is so much more than just the physical.
And yeah, and it's so funny how we treat really sex as this like separate thing in our culture. It's like sex is over here and then life and everything in it is over here.
Totally.
Whereas there is only life with sex. Like
right. As I said,
intrinsically connected, it filters into
the
everything.
way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
I guarantee
Yeah.
there's commonality between the way that you go to work, approach your mom, drive your car, go grocery shopping,
Yeah.
browse the internet.
Well, and that's
like
100% how you relate is how you relate is the way I say it too. And I work with very like career oriented couples who are very into, effectiveness and being, high achieving and all that stuff too. And then I'm like, okay, great. You're approaching all these other partnerships in your life, right? Because everything is partnership. You're in relationship with whomever you're engaging with. So your business partnerships, your family, whatever it is. And we're not treating this relationship, which is allegedly your most important one, in the same way. We don't have systems in place. We don't have stop losses. We don't have like all these parameters that serve you in every other point. It's a spot, a single point of failure in your life. This could blow everything up.
Yeah.
Divorces are messy, expensive, time consuming, and often unnecessary.
Yeah.
But we don't have the parameters in place to investigate the idea that there's even another option.
Right. Because of the sort of like mystical story that we've been taught about romantic relationships. Yeah.
It's just this like magical effervescent thing that just flows through. And,
they'll never require any effort.
Yeah. Well, and then like also like the individual, the idea of like there's the one. It's like the sword in the stone, the one ring to rule them all. That this like thing, this object. Again, this object, not a human being. This
identity.
Object, that will solve it all and fulfill everything and all of our dreams. Da 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 da. And so I just go, cool. Like, how's your one friend that you have? Because you only need one friend in your life. Because you only need one romantic partner, and they solve all of that. So you should only have one friend for all the things, and you should only have one business partner. And what, like just that idea alone, why this one specific type of relationship is seen as just irrational in a lot of ways, honestly. And
because there are, I think, plenty of people who are really happy with just one person in their life, romantically, but yeah, the idea that you can choose that for yourself. It doesn't have to be chosen for you.
That's what I mean, is that it's not compulsory, that it's still by design. As long as your relational dynamic is by design, you have understanding your needs, your hierarchy of exclusivity on the physical and emotional planes, what it is that you can put into place to satisfy that your partner's in agreement with you, that you've created this relationship agreement jointly, whether it's monogamy or non-monogamy. That it's a choice, that it's a willing, active, by design choice, not by default.
And you can always go back.
Yeah, again, speaking of change, people open, they close. They open differently, they close. It's the conversation. It doesn't stop. And it's part of the trust building and the intimacy. Like these conversations, honestly, the discomfort, the uncomfortable conversations are honestly some of the most intimate. And I've seen them become the most strong connective tissue in a relationship.
It's so ironic because we try to avoid those difficult conversations when they are what makes a relationship and strengthens it and protects it and makes it, like you said earlier, bulletproof.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We're going through these questions. I love it. And we already talked about the capacity to hold discomfort. I love that. Is there like a direct? I'm such a number. I'm like, I need stats. I want graphs. Why isn't there a screen share? I want to see like pie charts of like the connection between the physical and the sexual, the physical, sexual, and the emotional, romantic capacity for discomfort in both of those regions. How like a chart showing just how related they are. As you increase one, the other increases alongside. I would imagine they go hand in hand. Does it make sense? Kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, don't. I would be curious in seeing a study on it.
I don't have it. I don't have a chart. I would like to. I'm going to see if I can find one. I don't know that it exists. But yes, let's see. What else did I want to touch on? Oh yeah, the role of relationship orientation. We're talking about that a good bit on it being understanding your relationship orientation. We talk a lot about sexual orientation, which again is a huge source of, unfortunately, still a lot of shame for a lot of people, and really understanding where they fall on that spectrum is so key. But so is relationship orientation, really understanding what relationship will serve you and your needs the best at this point in your life. And that it is fluid, potentially just like sexual orientation. And how important just understanding that is, so that you can have a relationship that is fulfilling, so that you can have a sexual life that is fulfilling.
Yeah, and it's custom tailored to you.
Very, very much. Yeah. Oh, let's get into the juicy juice. Performance anxiety at sex parties, and or performance changes, I should say, shifts in performance with multi-partner dynamics. Because you can have, I'm sure clients of yours, they're having, whatever the issues that they're addressing with you in their relationship, or if they're solo, when that opens up into a group environment or with new partners, if they're opening up their relationship, do you find that new or different issues might come up, or resurgences of old ones that they thought they addressed?
Yeah, for sure. Anytime that we're changing our sexual relationship, and even sometimes when it's staying exactly the same, we are definitely we're engaging in a different way, right? With a different version of us, with different stories, different beliefs, different hesitations, different fears. And anytime that our internal mental or emotional map changes around our sexuality, we are like, I don't think we're more likely necessarily, but I'd say probably, yeah, we're more likely to see shifts in the way that our body responds. Just the same way that, like, when you're with a previous lover, your body responded this way, you found it difficult or easier to reach orgasm. Like, yeah, if you go into a new scenario with different lovers, plural for sure, but even to just a different person, or maybe you have some like fears around, maybe like you are opening up your relationship and you're a man and you've been having condom-free sex with your wife for 10 years because y'all are on birth control. And then she's like, okay, great. Like, you have my absolute blessing to go have sex with another woman, but you got to use a condom. And you get into the situation and you're not used to using condoms. You haven't had a condom on in a decade. And then suddenly you're not able to like get hard or get off because you're not familiar with condoms, and you like, it can be as simple as that. Or maybe you're privately very afraid that, by having sex with this other person, that your spouse is like, maybe they're saying it's okay and they're saying that they are giving you enthusiastic consent, but maybe you're afraid that they're really not. You're anxious about, ruining your relationship or upsetting the delicate balance, or you feel, like you don't want to, you want to make sure to get your needs met, but you have fear around upsetting your spouse at home. Your body is just a reflection of your spirit and your mind and your emotions. And all bodies, vulvas, penises, anuses, mouths, like all bodies are going to respond differently to that sort of pressure, that sort of like internal dialogue. And I want to acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with you. If your body is behaving differently than what you're used to, or if your body's behaving differently than how you want it to, like, that you're not alone. And it's often just a matter of getting the right tools and resources. And my earphones just died.
Oh yeah, got some reverb. We got to though.
I bet the audio is really bad. We can begin to wrap up here so that they don't have to put up with my bad. We covered all of our, I think.
Yeah, a lot of the good stuff. Well, I just want to circle back on just to wrap up this section to different things that can come up when you're in a new dynamic, whether it's you're opening up, you're going to a sex party for the first time, you have a new partner, and you still have, your original partner. That can bring up all these, unexpected physical components that you mentioned, and also emotional ones. Like I know for my own self, one of the things I experienced earlier in my journey was surprising myself with a new attachment style. I was like, oh no, I've got my
Yes,
attachment styles
yeah,
figured out. I know that I have anxious tendencies and I've worked on them and I'm secure as fuck and look at me.
yeah.
And then boom, hello avoidance. I'm like, who, what? Like, I don't react like this. This is it. And getting to then work through a whole new area of triggers and things that I didn't even know I had. And to your point, it's just data. There's nothing wrong here. This is just data. And now what do you want to do with it? What's the story you want to tell? How do you want to use it in your journey, in your experience? And I think really opening up conversations around it with our partners is so powerful, because it's such a beautiful bid for connection with the right support, of course, as well.
Agreed.
For sure. Well, we're just about at the end of our call, and we did promise a couple folks a little giveaway. We've got a couple packs of your Spark deck. You want to talk really briefly about? Wait, oh yeah. Oh, and can you model one? I would love that. I love a visual reference. Yeah.
So I made this deck. It's filled with 150 questions, and each one of them has on it a comment from me to help you answer it. And the game is essentially that you pull one of these cards, and it gives you a subject to discuss, whether it's like a first time that you're meeting up with someone on a date, or you're with your spouse of 20 years, or you're talking about, or with a group of people, even maybe people that you're interested in. So this card is, if a genie could grant you one sexual wish, what would it be for?
Ooh.
What a spicy subject to bring into a non-monogamy conversation.
Delightful. Oh, and we do actually have a question in the comments too. We'll get to that.
So Allie has agreed to send 2 of these out. We're giving 2 of these out to. How do they let you know? How do they enter?
So we are gonna lovingly choose a couple people here that are still tuned in with us. We've got some questions actually too, and we will send you a DM to get your shipping information. That is how we will, because they have to ship from the warehouse, correct, Caitlin? Like you said.
Yeah,
So we get them.
Need their address, name and address.
Yeah. Perfect. I will sort that out. And I will
So make sure that you're able to get your name and address to Allie in order to.
Yes. You can shoot me a DM. I'm at passport, the number 2 pleasure. So let's see, we've got a question really quick here before we wrap up, from Charles J. Evans. Polar opposites in marriages, empath and narcissist, or erotic blueprint. One has a kinky personality, the other has a touch leaning. How do you handle them? Well, I like something we touched on a little bit earlier, one of the beautiful benefits of non-monogamy and having a consensually open relationship is you can have other needs met with other partners, as long as there are agreements in place where everyone feels safe to explore. So different is not, you don't need to date your carbon copy. You don't need to marry your carbon copy. Differences are the necessary, the spice of life. They are how you learn from each other, how you grow, how you expand. So the beauty of having a secure relationship agreement in place, it enables you to explore those other things and without having unnecessary pressure on your partner. Caitlin, do you want to add to that in any way?
Yeah, and I would say that wherever 2 people are willing to come together and learn each other's styles, you're gonna have a better chance of making your sexual relationship successful no matter what. And in those situations where one or both people isn't like able to, interested, or willing to like really meet in the middle, then like I really think that going, like what we're talking about here, going outside of your relationship to like get your needs met, because the last thing I want is for anyone to die with regrets, like full stop. Sex is too easy to enjoy, too important to who we are as human beings. And if you know for sure that you're going to live an unsatisfied, unhappy life if you don't express, like, say, your kink or your sensual needs or whatever, like, I think that's a good enough reason to figure out how to do so intelligently, ethically, and
in integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Charles, that was a great question to wrap it up. So I think we're definitely going to throw a card stack to you. Religious bias may hinder that. Well, that's an agreement system that you have in place. We're not going to get into a deep religious debate at the moment, but I'm happy to set up a free discovery call with you where we can explore all of that and more in regards to the diverse array of relationship dynamics. But Charles, you're going to get yourself a deck of cards. Charles J. Evans, 7. That's one there. And then, Intimacy Arts, you're always so engaged and wonderful with your comments and your questions. We're going to hit you up with a deck too. They said there is a wide spectrum of kink, some of which might also appeal to a touch-loving empath. Great point.
Love
Again,
that.
it's these overlaps. It's not so all or nothing. And these opportunities to find where we can connect are key. So we've got Intimacy Art, I see, getting a deck. We have got Charles J. Evans, number 7, getting a deck. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have questions that pop up later, don't hesitate to ask either one of us. Slide into our DMs. Caitlin B here today with me on Open Dialogue. I'm Allie Iseman, Open Relationships Coach, signing off and thanking you very much for tuning in.
Great, thanks, Allie.
Oh my God, I did it. I can never get them to work. Oh, that's so exciting. Magic. Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.